All right, moving on then to Leeds as we get into the second half of the Premier League teams. A busy window for Leeds. I think busier than we thought they might have. New manager Jesse March, his first proper transfer. Now I can't remember at what point in the season he came in last year, whether it was January had come and gone or not. But you know, they've brought in a number of players from Red Bull Salzburg and Red Bull Leipzig. Obviously, there's some links there with Jesse March from his time in Germany. But, you know, some of the players they've brought in, despite the fact they've been quite unknown, and there's a little bit of, like, how do I put this? Arrogance, I suppose, is the right word of saying, because he's an American manager, he's brought in an American player or two, that it's, you know, that they're not good enough because they're American type thing, you know, that standard stereotype. But actually, Brendan Aronson, I actually think looks really good.
I think he does look very good.
I've been really impressed with Sinistera as well.
Sinistera looks very good. That rocker has been quite good for them as well.
So I think they've had a good window.
I do as well.
I would be tempted to say,
I would go B if you're thinking B.
Yeah, or maybe a B minus.
Yeah.
If we're saying Chelsea are at the upper end of the B, I think that Leeds are at the bottom end of the B. But I think you can make a case for saying that some of these players they brought in or have made impacts.
Yeah.
And whilst we're trying to not judge on how they're doing in the league, we can judge these players if they came in early in the window, how they've started the season individually. Yeah. And I think Leeds have done okay. So we're going to put them into a B minus just because of how some of those players have started the season already. In terms of outgoings, obviously they're the two big ones, Rafinha and Calvin Phillips. They're huge players to replace. So Leeds have, Leeds have got a big job to replace those two. Tyler Roberts was a player last year that did a reasonable amount of games for them because of Bamford's injuries. Helder Costa once upon a time was a big player for them, so bigger player.
Kiko Casilla as well. He was the Real Madrid backup keeper for it.
Yeah, didn't he get in some not legal trouble, but he got in trouble because of some racist comments, I think he said, or something along those lines. So, but yeah, I think Leeds have had a good window. I'm starting to lean towards should they be a C plus rather than a B minus.
I'm happy for you to.
Yeah, I think maybe if you look at some of those players in terms of how they've started, you could make the same case for one or two of those players at Fulham. Yeah, having had the same impact. So I think probably we need to put them in the same group there. So okay, we're dropping Leeds down to a C. Okay, right, this one shouldn't take long. Leicester City. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to really say there, is there, to be honest. They brought in two players on deadline day. Wout Faes, I don't know how you pronounce that, and Alex Smithies from Cardiff. Don't know anything about either of them, if I'm being brutally honest. But they have let a few people go. In particular, obviously Wesley Fofana, as we spoke about, that's a huge miss. Yeah. But Casper Schmeichel, obviously, they let him go quite early in the window.
Very cheap as well.
Very cheap. He is not getting any younger. He is 32, 33, I think.
35.
35. Oh, yes, yeah, he was, because we talked about it on the podcast.
You thought he was in his 20s?
Yeah, because I still thought he was like in his late 20s. But I do think that Casper Schmeichel not being there, not just because of how good a goalkeeper he was and the fact that unfortunately Ward at the minute for me doesn't really look up to scratch. No. I suspect that Schmeichel not being in the dressing room is also a huge factor for Leicester's struggles at the moment.
He's a league-winning player, isn't he?
League-winning player. He's got a load of experience at international level as well. I suspect that they are missing him in the dressing room as well. That being said, when you take it all into account, Leicester have not done anything like enough in the transfer market. It sounds like they have got some financial issues going on, and unfortunately that has manifested itself insofar as that Leicester have not really signed anyone of any note. They've let two big players go, not replaced them, and they've started the season really badly. Not that we're using that to judge this because it's an F, whichever way you look at it, but it could be, dare I say, this could be a very, very long season for Leicester if this keeps up.
Yeah, it's not started well, has it?
No, not at all. So yeah, Leicester comfortably an F from us. Okay, moving on then to Liverpool. Obviously Darwin Núñez is the big name sign. Liverpool tend to do this. They don't seem to spend money on lots of players. They tend to spend a big money on one player. Yeah. Is 100 million for Darwin Núñez good value though? Or is it too early to tell?
I mean, I think it's a lot for a player that's had one good season.
I'm not sure. I mean, 100 million. We've heard those stories about how Benfica was saying that they couldn't believe their luck.
Yeah.
When Liverpool offered to pay 86 million for him. I mean, from what I've seen of him, he looks okay. He looks like he's going to score goals. You know, he gives them a different dimension that they've not had in that number 9 position for some time. I just think that 86 million, you know, they could have got. When you look at some of the other strikers that are around, could they have got a very good striker for say 50 million and then spent that other 35 million on another central midfielder, which I personally feel they needed more. You know, they've spent. Luis Diaz looks great. Sadio Mane is a huge miss for them, I think. You know, few people have said at the weekend in the game against Everton when they drew 0-0 that Sadio Mane is the sort of player that could have got them a 1-0 win in that game. He used to find a goal out of nothing. Mo Salah, has started the season poorly by his standards.
I think midfield was the area they needed to strengthen.
I really do. Like central midfield, they've had so many injury issues over the last few years. Fabinho always picks up little knocks. Thiago picks up knocks. I think I've just read the other day that Henderson's out for a month now as well. So then they're still relying on someone like James Milner after all these time, and I just think that, you know, I don't know how much money. I know they brought in Arthur Melo late on from Juventus.
That was a bit of a panic.
It was a bit of a panic. I mean, he's not a bad player, don't get me wrong, but it's clearly not a plan A type approach. This is a shit. We need somebody to come in because of these injuries we've got. Carvalho, that being said, looks good. I'll give him his dues. He's looked good in the games I've seen him.
He started the last game, I think.
And obviously the players going out. The legend that is Divock Origi has left the club. He's gone to Milan. Sadio Mane, Nico Williams and Minamino are obviously the other big names from that list. Reece Williams as well out. Where do you rate this one for Liverpool? I'm a bit torn.
I think I'd go D.
I think I'm parting. Yeah, probably like a D+. I just don't think they spent this money wisely.
If we're basing it mainly on have they strengthened in the right areas, then I don't think they have.
Firmino, you know, based on what we've seen this season, can still offer something. I didn't think he could, but he's turned up in the last few weeks.
And they've got Jota that can play as a striker.
Yeah, they've got Carvalho who can play high up on the wing. They've still got Luis Diaz. They've still got Salah. So they've got a number of attacking options. I don't know if they needed to spend £86 million on another striker. I think they should have spent more of that money on a proper future. I mean, they could have gone out and got someone like Onana.
Yeah.
You know, their midfield is aging. You know, Henderson, I don't know the exact age of these players. Henderson's in his 30s. Yeah. Thiago's in his 30s. Yeah. Milner's probably in his 60s by now.
Fabinho, I think, is in.
So, you know, this is a problem that's coming at them sooner or later, and it feels like this is... Are they just kicking the can down the road a little bit with the Arthur Melo loan? Sooner or later, this is going to catch them in the backside. I know Harvey Elliott looks really good.
Yeah.
But they're going to need other recruits. So I think I'm kind of with you. I think Liverpool have had a reasonably poor window. I think they've not strengthened the right areas. Nunez so far, he's looked okay. Not £86 million worth for me, not yet. And his temperament has already been called into question by being wound up like a jack in the box by Anderson at Palace. So, yeah, I think a D. I think that's fair. Okay, moving on to Manchester City then. Players out, just before we talk about the players in. The players out is quite a long list. We won't go through all of them. The headline ones, obviously, Sterling, Jesus, Zinchenko that we've all talked about. There's a Bazunu to Southampton. Anyone? Lavia, I think that's another one to Southampton, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously Fernandinho's gone back to Brazil, I believe. So yeah, a few players out, but they have done what Man City always tend to do. They've replaced, they've bought players in areas that they needed to buy. And we'll talk about the obvious one in a minute, but you know, you look at the others: Stefan Ortega for free, Sergio Gomez from Anderlecht. Akanji and Calvin Phillips. One that's not on that list, strange. Oh no, it's because Alvarez was bought last year, wasn't he? Yeah. And he went on loan back. So, but Alvarez, you could, I suppose, class as a new signing.
Yeah.
Calvin Phillips, we've barely seen anything of him so far. Do you think this was a mistake, Calvin Phillips?
From him?
For him to go to Man City?
Yeah, in terms of, I think it's going to ruin his World Cup chances.
I still think he'll go.
Do you think?
I think he'll go, but I don't think he's going to be first choice.
I don't know if he's going to play enough football. If he goes, then I think it would be very unfair on any midfielders that don't go.
I mean, who would you take in his place? I mean, this is probably a conversation for another day in terms of World Cup squads.
I can't really name anyone off the top of my head.
Rice is obviously the obvious one in that position.
Yeah.
Henderson, if he's fit, will go.
Yeah.
Bellingham. Who else? I'm trying to think of other players in that sort of position.
Elliot.
Yeah, possibly could be with a sort of a late shout.
For me, I feel like if you're not playing for your club, you shouldn't really be going.
No, I don't disagree, and I don't know whether he played because he is a little bit injury prone himself, Calvin Phillips. So I don't know how much of this season has been through injury and how much of it has been through sitting on the bench. But I do recall several times seeing him on the bench and just not coming on.
Yeah.
Manuel Akanji, I think, is a really good bit of business. 15 million for him.
15 million,
yeah. He looked pretty damn good in the Champions League last night, was it? Yeah, last night. But obviously, let's talk about the signing of the summer, you would argue.
Ortega.
Erling Haaland from Dortmund for 51.3 million. Now, I do want to put it out there. If there's anyone out there among you that uses this transfer as a way of comparing value to other people's transfers, just stop it. All right, because that is not a true reflection of his market value. That is taking advantage of a clause in his contract. But I guarantee you, if his agent was still alive, he would be really pissed off that they said it so fucking low.
It'd be like 150 mil.
Yeah, 150 easy for Haaland right now. Now, that being said, I will hold my hands up. I was one of those people that wasn't 100% certain. I didn't think he would flop. Never did I think he was going to flop. But I did think that there would be a bit of a settling in period while he got used to the way that City play.
Yeah.
Oh boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, just how good can Haaland be for City? It's fucking scary.
We scored 2 goals last night in the Champions League, so it's that 12 goals in like 6 games.
I think it's 11 and 6 now. I think in all competitions. Yeah.
I thought we had 10 in the league now.
You might be right. I mean, I'm losing track.
He had 9, and then he got 1 against Villa, and then
you're right. Yeah, so it's 12 in 7 then all competitions. Yeah. I mean, one thing I have noticed as well is that Haaland, assuming De Bruyne can stay fit, De Bruyne and Haaland could be the new Kane and Son in terms of the amount of assists that De Bruyne is going to lay on for him. I mean, De Bruyne's range of passing is ridiculous, as we know, and the 2 goals that he scored the other night, the first one, I can't remember the second one, but the first one was a ball whipped in into a really dangerous area. But you watch Haaland's movement off the ball, the predatory instinct is something you just cannot teach in a striker. And the second De Bruyne got even remotely in behind, you see him was gone, and the defenders had no idea he'd even moved, and before they realised it was already in the back of the net. I genuinely, from the start of the season where I thought that he would struggle a little bit with the season, I can now see him getting comfortably 25 to 30 goals in the league this season. If he stays fit. Obviously fitness is still a...
Golden Boot is already his.
Oh mate, Golden Boot is a foregone conclusion. No one's going to get near him in this form. The only way someone gets near him is if he has injury issues, which could happen.
Son was last year's joint Golden Boot winner, and he's not scored a goal yet.
Yeah, I mean, he only got 17. I mean, he's over half the way there already. We've only played 6 league games. So, yeah, it's an incredible signing. I think, obviously there was a lot of talk about it. There was a lot of people interested. Where do you put them on the list here?
I would probably go A. I don't think they're... I don't know if I'd put anyone on S, to be honest.
It's there. We've got to use it, right?
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, you don't have to. Yeah.
Do you think S?
If anybody is going to get an S from this, I think you have to put City. Just because the fact that they were the club that got Haaland. Yeah. And we are now seeing what an amazing signing that was. So yeah, we're gonna give Man City the coveted S. They might be alone in that. We'll have a chat about.
There's maybe one other team.
Maybe one other team, yeah. Although if it's who I think it is, we're gonna have a debate about that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, on to Manchester United. Now, over to you, sir. What do you think of this window?
Yeah, this one's a bit annoying for me because I'll judge it as a neutral, but as a fan, it annoyed me that we didn't really do anything until all the protests started happening. Because the transfer window was all over the place. Well, obviously, we'd only signed Malacia at one point, and he was pretty much an unknown left back. And then we overpaid for Martinez.
Yeah.
Bought in Christian Eriksen on free, but that took about 2 months longer than it should have done.
Was that not him though?
Potentially, but I feel like, you know, if you can't convince
Eriksen, make him an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah. And then Dubravka, a bit random, but I mean, he was Newcastle's number 1 last season. I thought he was quite good, so I think he's a good backup goalkeeper to have.
Yeah.
And then Casemiro and Antony were obviously, I think, great signings, but they just sort of came out. Obviously, the big one was we chased De Jong for 3 months, and he said he didn't want to come for 3 months. And it wasn't until like a week before the window was going to end that United were like, oh yeah, we're going to give up on De Jong.
Yeah, I mean, De Jong's the real winner in the transfer window, isn't he? Because he's managed to avoid leaving. He's kept his nice, ridiculous contract to Barcelona, so he's the real winner here.
But I mean, as a neutral, I look at the players we've brought in, and I look at the positions. And a CDM we needed. We got Casemiro, one of the best in the world. Brought in another central midfielder in Eriksen, who's been unreal for Brentford, and he's been very good for us.
Yeah, he has.
We brought in Malacia, who I think has been very good in place of Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I think Malacia has arguably been on that list. Him and Eriksen have been your 2 best signings.
Yeah, 100%. Martinez, I think, has been, the first 2 games very wobbly. Everyone kept going on about his height. He was going to be a flop. Since then, since Maguire has swapped out and Varane has come in, I think the partnership they've made has been unbreakable. I mean, we've kept 2 or 3 clean sheets in those 4 games.
I mean, I suppose on the height thing, I mean, it is very easy to assume that he's going to get bullied, and we saw evidence of that against Brentford. But there have been a number of central midfielders who have been reasonably small that have been prolific heading scorers. Tim Cahill, he scored so many goals with his head, and he was only about 5'9", 5'10".
I saw something like Puyol was quite small.
Yeah, and yet he's regarded as one of the best in the world at the time. So I think if him and Varane can work out a partnership and organise themselves against the teams they're playing, because it's rare that you're going to come up against a team that's going to play 2 big men up front. So you've just got to be clever and organised enough that Martinez can look after that player when it's not in the air, and Varane comes across when it is.
And then obviously Antony, only seen him in 1 game so far, but from what I saw, he looks very exciting. I'm looking forward to watching him. I think the big one for United is more outgoings. Obviously, we had a lot of players leave on frees, and I don't know if we, other than Pereira and Garner, we didn't really sell anyone. But
no, I mean, you look at that list, there's a lot of fairly big names in there. You got Pereira to Fulham, Pogba on a free to Juventus, Matic, Lingard, Cavani, Mata, Chong, Dean Henderson, Eric Bailly, Amad Diallo, Alex Telles. These are a few of those are loans and stuff, but that's a huge. Virtually all of those players I've just mentioned, bar 1 or 2, were all, first 11 or dancing around the first 11. Certainly in every matchday squad of the season. So that's a huge amount of players out the door. What it is, though, is a huge amount of wages that have been freed up. Yeah,
and to be fair, there's not one player there that I really sort of regret leaving.
Yes, and I would agree with that. The only one potentially would be Eric Bailly for me.
Yeah.
Just because he's such a better player compared to Harry Maguire.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
as a neutral, looking at the players gone and the players coming in, I would say an A or a B. But you're more of a neutral than me, so I will let you decide this one.
It's tricky because I would have liked before we did this, I would have liked to have potentially seen more of Antony and Casemiro to make a judgment on whether I think they're good value for money. Now, Casemiro at 60 million is a lot of money for a 30-year-old, but we have seen people like Thiago move for fairly big money, and 1 or 2 other players have gone for fairly big money in their early 30s. So I'm not against that, and to be brutally honest, that was the position they needed to fill, and they have needed that for years. So the fact that they've done that, even if it was done in a slightly roundabout way, in that it appeared that he was about the 10th choice on the list.
How did they go to Rabiot before Casemiro?
Yeah, unless they just didn't know he was available. Yeah, somebody's let them know that he might be available. Yeah. But my overriding feeling on this is that yes, you've got Casemiro, who's a fantastic player, been there and done it all. You look at some of the other signings. Again, I go back to Onana for 30 million, Basuma 25 million. So were there better options out there? A bit more of a longer term view, maybe. But I certainly don't think he's going to be a bad player. So we'll have to wait and see. Antony, 86 million is a lot of money. So he's going to have to do a lot. He started where he looked exciting at the weekend, took his goal really well. But he's going to need to keep that up. But on the face of it, I think I would probably give. Where would I go? Would I go a B+ or like an A-? I think I'll go B+, but reserving judgment for how Anthony and Casemiro settle in. If over the next few weeks they both start playing on a more regular basis, I know Anthony started, but Casemiro hasn't started a game yet. If they continue to improve as a team as well, and everyone starts to gel, I think they comfortably go into that A bracket.
Yeah.
But for now, I think I'll probably just give them like a B+.
Yep.
Same bracket as Chelsea. Alrighty, let's move on then to Newcastle. The sort of the evolution rather than revolution mindset continues. Alexander Isak coming in late in the day for 63 million, a signing I think they needed to make as a marquee signing striker. Sven Botman, Matt Targett, Nick Pope, all coming in. A number of players leaving. None of them will be.
White Girl finally found his forever home in the Championship.
I mean, he's been there for a long time anyway on loan, but he's finally moved on permanently. Isaac Hayden, Dubravka, Kieran Clark, Matty Longstaff, F. Hendrick, names that will be familiar to people, but not necessarily ones that were ever going to be travelling the first 11 at Newcastle, really. I think they've done good business, Newcastle. I think Eddie Howe is taking a really good approach with this, because it'd be very easy just to know how much money that Newcastle have got to go out and just try and keep buying marquee signings left, right and centre, when actually he's just building a really good core squad of players that have got that real desire to work hard and to improve themselves. Nick Pope, I think, has been fantastic already.
Yeah, he was a great sign. 10 million as well. It was an absolute steal.
Matt Targett, genuinely, I mean, Pickford is not a new signing, of course, but he's been very good recently, and I don't think there's any cause to say that he's going to be dropped from England, because I just don't see why you would. But Nick Pope would certainly be the number 2, comfortably.
Signing Sven Botman from Newcastle.
They signed Sven Botman from themselves, apparently, according to this website, for 33 million. He came from
French team.
It was a French team, wasn't it? Yeah. I can't remember where it was, but they signed him for 33 million. He looks a great signing. 6'7", I think. Big old guy. So they got him, Dan Burn at the back.
That
so they got
be him in the picture, Lil.
Oh yes, I think it is. So they've got a big, tall, sturdy defence now with a very good goalkeeper. And Alexander Isak up front has looked very sharp in the game.
He's a great signing, I think. Yeah.
And I think ultimately Newcastle signed Chris Wood last year because I don't think they wanted to make that marquee signing just straight away. I think maybe they wanted to make that call across the summer.
Means we don't have to play against him on Thursday now.
This is true, yeah. Alexander Isak, though, he comes in to really be a side by side, I would say, with Wilson. I don't think they're going to have a number 1 or a number 2 striker there, because Callum Wilson...
This is another Danny Ings-Watkins thing, though, I feel.
It is, but I think the decisions are going to be fairly straightforward for Eddie Howe, because Callum Wilson is injured so often that he's not really going to have to make this call that often.
No.
I mean, Callum Wilson apparently is out for a fairly reasonable amount of time now.
Already?
Because I was looking at the team.
It's a shame, because he's so good for them when he plays.
He's genuinely, for me, when he's on form and he's fit, he's probably the best English striker behind Harry Kane. Yeah. And I was looking at the team news ahead for this weekend. They were talking about Guimaraes and St. Maximin potentially coming back for the West Ham game. But it said that Callum Wilson was a more longer-term absentee. I don't know what he's done. I think it was hamstring from memory. I think that Isaac's going to have a lot of football by default, because Wilson's just not going to be around that much.
Which is obviously why they've sort of spent so much money on getting a striker in, because they just know what Callum was.
Yeah. So, I think they've had a really good window. For me, this is probably B. Really solid window. Okay, right, on to the big one.
Need to put it on that screen.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put it onto the other screen, I think. Nottingham Forest somehow made another signing today.
Yeah.
Serge Aurier's gone there today. I believe it's either 22 or 23 now. I mean, I genuinely can't be asked to go through the list of players. If you're interested, go and Google it, but it is a ridiculously long list.
A lot of well-known players.
I was going to say, it's full of quite experienced Premier League players, as well as some more unknown younger players. They obviously have lost a lot as well. It's easy to forget that they did have a lot of players that were on loan last season that have gone back to their parent clubs. That being said, they have effectively they've signed 2 new starting 11s in terms of the numbers. Now, when we spoke about City being an S, were you suggesting that these boys could be an S?
No.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, you were going to United?
No.
Who we got left then? Oh, okay. Anyway, Nottingham Forest for me, I would put them bang middle of the road right now.
As a C?
I would go C, and I'll tell you, here's my reasoning. We have seen teams do this before, not even on this scale. This is probably the largest transfer spending spree that we've ever seen in the Premier League in a single window in terms of the number of players that have come in. For Steve Cooper, who is an untested Premier League manager, to somehow figure out from these 23 players plus all the ones he had before what his best 11 is and then make them gel is an unbelievably tall order for him. And we've already seen evidence that there is no cohesion in that team whatsoever right now. Going 2-0 up against relegation rivals, if you like, Bournemouth, and then losing 3-2 is a really poor result. They've got a number of players in there that I would put question marks against as to their motivations. People like Dean Henderson, Jesse Lingard, in particular Jesse Lingard. But for me, it is just such a risk. I don't think Nottingham Forest are going to have a particularly a good season. I really don't. I think they're going to have a really frustrating season, and Steve Cooper has got to be insanely clever with this squad, because he's either going to keep tinkering and just hope that something sticks. It's like throwing a dartboard blind at a board and hoping you get treble 20. Or he finds his starting 11 quickly and then he ends up with, 10 to 15 unhappy players that he signed because they're not playing.
Yeah, for me, it feels like Forest are playing poker and they've gone all in. And at the moment, the cards aren't coming out in their favour. No,
they're playing poker with their cards up at the moment, aren't they? They're showing everybody else what their hand is. They've signed a lot of... there's a few players in there that I really like. Lewis O'Brien, Harry Toffolo, I think are fantastic signings. Morgan Gibbs-White is a big money signing, but I do like him as a player. I've liked what I've seen.
He's at 50.
It's because he's young, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like... Awonyi. I like him from what I've seen. I think he's good. How many goals he's going to get, not sure.
Dennis was good for Watford last season.
He was. Chet Koyate, I think, is a solid signing for them. Vast experience, and Dean Henderson is a good goalkeeper as much as he likes to remind everyone of that fact as well. So they've got some good players in there, but I just really don't know. The concern for me is that they've signed 23 players, and yet their back line has largely been unchanged this season from what it was last year. And in the Premier League, if you're not strong at the back, then you're in trouble. And we've seen them concede a lot of goals this season already. Yeah. And if it wasn't for Dean Henderson making a couple of penalty saves, it would have been even more. So for me, at the moment, I don't think you can put them anywhere else other than bang in the middle, just purely because we do not know how this is going to play out. For me, the high risk, high reward. It is high risk that could be an amazing season because they suddenly find out it works. Equally, it could be what happened to Fulham a few years ago.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So you happy with that? Happy to go for C?
C.
Alrighty, moving on then to Southampton then as we get to the last 4 Premier League teams. Look at their outgoings. Fraser Forster, Oriol Romeo, Shane Long, Valerie. Nobody really there of major consequence. Few players coming in though. Kaleta Kar is a decent signing from Marseille. I think he is Croatian. I think he's a Croatian international centre-back, so I think he comes with good pedigree.
That Lavia's been good.
Yeah, Lavia's been good. Bazunu is showing real signs. He's a very young goalkeeper. I know Pete is a big fan of his from the podcast, having seen him at Portsmouth on loan.
Ketchup's been good.
Yeah. I think is Aribo... Is he the youngster that Pete was going on about as well? I can't remember.
They've signed quite a few youngsters, actually.
Yeah,
Lavia is a youngster from City.
Yeah, Maitland-Niles is a good signing, I think, from Arsenal. I don't know why it said he's come from Troyes. Pretty sure he was at Arsenal, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they've had a good window. One of their biggest issues, though, was scoring goals. And I'm not sure if they've got enough firepower to score the goals to avoid a long season. That being said, their form has been okay recently. Not that we're taking that into account, of course, but
beat Chelsea.
They came back from behind to beat Leicester as well the week before. So there is
I thought it was Leeds they came.
No, it was Leicester. It was at Leicester as well.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think they've had an okay window. I think for me, obviously, not knowing huge amounts of some of these players, we're having to judge the ones we've already seen on what we have seen.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's you could argue it's looking ahead to the future. They're not trying to cut corners by signing established players now. They're looking at people who could turn into better players in the future. So
I think going for young players is the way to go, to be honest. I don't like it when clubs sign like 30-odd-year-old players. Unless they actually bring something to the team.
Yeah. So yeah, for me this one's a difficult one to call just because I don't know a huge amount about a lot of these players. I know we've seen a few of them look good so far, so I think we're probably going to have to put them in that C bracket again, aren't we?
I'd probably say C+/C-.
Yeah.
/B-.
Right then, moving on to Spurs. I think we could say on paper they have had a very, very good window.
Yeah, and they, unlike Spurs, they actually moved very quickly.
It was most un-Spurs-like, wasn't it?
Usually they like to drag out and reduce the pennies as much as possible. I
was quite surprised by the amount that they actually spent as well, because bold accounts, they've got a lot of money to pay back on the new stadium. Obviously, getting Champions League would have been a big help from a revenue perspective. But yeah, they've brought in some really good players. I think Romero was a permanent signing, so I'm pretty sure he was on loan there last year. Richarlison for 60 million, Basuma for 25 million for me is a steal.
Yeah,
I think they took advantage of Basuma's personal situation with what was going on in the courts and stuff, and I think they took advantage, because I had heard that there were rumours that he was going to get convicted guilty. Well, I wonder if other clubs got wind of that, decided not to take a gamble on him, and then Spurs maybe got the inside track that actually that wasn't the case and got him for cheap. But whatever the case is, 25 million for Basuma I think is a really good deal. Jed Spence, obviously a really exciting young player. Perisic brings a lot. They got Lenglet from Barcelona. Yeah, I think this has been a really, really good window. They've strengthened in areas they needed to strengthen. Yeah,
they've got that sort of second striker that they needed. That was obviously one of the biggest things they've been missing for a long time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Richarlison is a probably a good player to target, because he's going from, let's be honest, a poor Everton team as things stand. So he will probably be happy to play second fiddle to another striker at a much bigger club that's playing in Champions League for a while. If he spends the vast majority of this season and some of next season, for example, on the bench, not having to have 20 minutes here, half an hour there, maybe the odd game in Europe, you might find all of a sudden he starts to get frustrated.
Yeah.
But for the time being, at least, I think he'll be pretty happy. He's been doing well when he's been coming off the bench. And I suspect that we haven't seen the results from tonight's Champions League stuff, but I suspect he probably started tonight.
Yeah.
So, where would you... let's just check the outgoings quickly before we do that. So, Bergwijn's obviously gone back to Ajax. Harry Winks gone out on loan. Reggie on loan. Lo Celso and Dombele. So, they've pushed out a lot of players that were in and around that first team squad. So yeah, where would you rate these guys?
I'd say the minimum A. I mean, as I said, they were the ones I was considering as a second S, but I'll let you have the deciding judgment.
This is tricky, this one, because there's a number of those players on that list that we've not really seen yet, and I guess going back to your argument, Romero, are we classing him as a new signing if he was already there last year? Basuma has played but not started games, same as Richarlison. Jed Spence hasn't had much of a look in yet. Perisic has done well, so we've not really seen enough from these new players yet to really say whether they're good signings or not. But on paper, I think I'd probably put them in the A category. I don't know, I just don't think nobody has signed such a player as Haaland in terms of the impact that he's come in and made. And he just seems to have just pushed City into a new dimension, completely a new league all on their own, really. Yeah. So yeah, we'll go A for Spurs, I think. All right.
You want to take the floor?
I will take the floor for this one. Yeah, West Ham. So what was at one point looking like a really difficult window and a really disappointing window has actually turned out to be a pretty damn good one in the end. Now, we signed Areola and Flynn Downs quite early, in the same way we've signed Aguirre quite early. Aguirre unfortunately got a fairly bad ankle injury in a pre-season friendly, which means we've not seen him in the league yet. I don't know when we're going to. I've heard rumours it could be after the World Cup. So it was obviously quite bad, whatever he did. And then after that, nothing really happened. We sort of Flynn Downs from Swansea was kind of out of nowhere, maybe a bit of a Mark Noble replacement. But yeah, there was nothing going on. And I think West Ham fans were getting, really similar kind of like Groundhog Day feelings about how West Ham talk a good game and linked with everybody and putting in bids for people that we don't get and all that kind of stuff. It was looking like the same old. And then all of a sudden we signed Scamacca, Cornet, Emerson, Kehrer and Paqueta all within sort of 3 weeks of 3 or 4 weeks. And it's transformed the window into a really, really strong one. I still think there was probably room for maybe one more, maybe winger, just because I'm not sure what Moyes thinks about people like Ben Rama, although Ben Rama's been good this year. So yeah, on paper, I think we've had a really, really good window. The areas we needed to fix was left back. We signed Emerson Palmieri and Kehrer can play there as well. We needed the goalie signing. We needed defenders, and again, Kehrer and Aguirre. Desperately needed that striker. Scamacca's come in. He's been ill for the last couple of games, but I think he's back tomorrow for the European game. So he's looked good. I think there's a little bit of period of where we have to adapt to him, get used to how he plays. But we've already seen a bit of an uptick in Antonio in the last few games. A little bit of a kick up the arse for him seems to have done him some good. And of course, the big one was Lucas Paquetá coming in.
I think Maxwell Cornet's a really good signing.
Yeah, I'm annoyed he hasn't played him much actually because he's looked really sharp. So I'm hoping we can see more of him soon.
Did he? Who's your kit maker? Did he point there?
Yeah, I don't know. Who is ours? Is ours Umbro? I can't remember if ours is Umbro.
That'd be quite funny.
Let me just scroll down. Is that a picture of that's Aguirre when he was playing at Rennes? So yeah, I think Paquetá is obviously the headline signing there, really, just because of the media talk surrounding that in terms of the reputation that he came in with. West Ham at the moment have been a little bit too direct in their play. I really hope that can change because Paquetá is the sort of player that will allow you to be a lot more controlling the possession and play through the channels and play through the thirds. So yeah, I think a really good window for me. I think if you'd have asked me before these signings came in, this would have been a D window for me. But I think now that we've signed all of these players, do I go as far as an A? What do you reckon? Maybe as the neutral, maybe you can, as I did for United.
One of those, I think, where you're like, on paper, it's a very good signing, but obviously looking at the performances and not a lot of them haven't really had any impact yet.
Yeah. Would you say like a B plus?
Yeah, I'd probably say B plus.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go with that. A little bit like we talk about Man United.
Yeah.
In the same bracket, that once we see a bit more of them, maybe they
could move up
into that A category. And then in terms of outgoings, obviously we lost Diop, Yarmolenko, Fredericks, Masuaku, Vlasic. So there's a few people that moved on for money and then freed up some wages, and obviously Mark Noble retired as well. So we'll move on then to Wolves, last one of the Premier League teams. Let's take a quick look at who they've lost. There's a number of players on here. So you've got Connor Cody, Fabio Silva. He was quite a big money signing at one point, wasn't he? Isn't he the youngster?
Yeah, he was like 18. I mean, I feel like that's a good move, loaning him out, get some first team football.
I have a feeling there was a reason they had to loan him out. I think it might have been
because he's shit.
Might have been wages, like FFP stuff.
Okay.
I think.
He's a wonder kid on Football Manager.
Oh, is he? John Ruddy, Roman Saiss, Willy Bowley, Ruben Vinagre, then Donker and Morgan Gibbs-White. So a number of recognisable names there. Now, the issue that Wolves have had, the biggest issue they've had, is that they've signed Sasa Kaladzic from Stuttgart for 16 million. He was meant to be their new big name striker, and he's done his ACL in his first game, which has now meant they're trying to get. Looks like they're going to get Diego Costa, who's a free agent. I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he's definitely the wrong side of 30 comfortably.
Yeah.
The problem is that when you bring a player back who hasn't been in the Premier League for a number of years, when he used to be at the height of his powers, you kind of mentally expect it to be the same. It's not.
No.
I don't think that is a very good signing from Wolves, I'll be honest. I know it's a stopgap measure because I think Jimenez is injured as well, but I don't see that one working out. So yeah, and they've got Hwang Hee-chan. They've got in, which I think was a permanent.
He was on loan
from last year. And then Mateus Nunes, obviously the big one, along with Goncalo Guedes from Valencia. It's a tough one with Wolves because they often do sign players that you've not really heard of that much, but they've spent good money in this window.
And they're always Portuguese.
They've spent good money. They broke the mould when they signed Nathan Collins from Burnley. Maybe they must have like Portuguese grandparents or something. So yeah, what do you make of these guys? I mean, horrific bad luck for Kaladzic to get an ACL on his first game. But I think bringing Diego, and the funny thing was, if they didn't get Diego Costa, apparently their next target was Andy Carroll. So that sort of tells you. I mean, I know we're outside of the transfer window, which is probably
slim pickings,
massively limits who you can go after. But I think I'd rather have Diego Costa than Andy Carroll, put it that way. But yeah, I think this is
not great for me.
No, I think this is probably I would say mid of the road, just because I don't really know enough about Mateus Nunes or Guedes to be able to really judge them. So yeah, this could be an 8th team going in that C category for me. You agree?
Yeah, I would probably agree with that.
All right then, so there it is. There is our list. I know the camera's covering D and F, but I'm sure you can work out what it is. If we look at that list now, is there any on that list that jump out at you and say, actually, no, they need to be moved somewhere else? Are you happy with our picks?
No, I mean, the only, which we don't have to do because it's pointless, but the only thing I'd do is maybe swap teams around in their given categories, but we don't really need to.
Yeah, we don't need to go into that depth.
But in terms of the categories they're in, I think I would agree with that.
Yeah. I think, the point in time, obviously doing this now that the window is closed, was key. If we'd have done this with a week or two with the window left to go, comparing this to what that would have been 2 weeks ago, it would probably be quite different. The only ones that would be probably the same would be the top, City at the top and Leicester at the bottom. But I suspect Leicester would have been at the bottom with Everton, and maybe West Ham wouldn't have been in the F, but they probably would have been in the D. A few weeks ago. So yeah, I think that's probably about right from where we're sitting. Let us know in the comments, guys, if you disagree with us, and why. Where would you move the teams around? Do you think we've done some bad calls here? So do feel free to call us out. But yeah, if you like the video, hit the like, sub for more, and we'll see you in the next one.